So I'd like to welcome everybody to the July 7th meeting of the Waterloo Regional Police Services Board, and I would entertain a motion to reconvene in open session. That is moved by Councillor Kiefer, seconded by Dr. Schneider. All those in favor, please indicate with your hand. That is carried. We acknowledge that the land on which we gather today is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, and Neutral people. We acknowledge the enduring presence of the Indigenous peoples with whom we share this land today, their achievements and their contributions to our community. We offer this acknowledgement as an act of reconciliation between Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples of Canada. What Indigenous people have taught me is that our relationship to the land needs to be one of stewardship rather than ownership. And I am honored to make this walk with them. Colleagues, are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? I see none. So the next agenda item is the consent agenda item, and that is 7.1 through 7.7. I would entertain a mover and a seconder to move these unless somebody would like something pulled out to the regular agenda or somebody has a question. So seeing none, could I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Rosita, seconded by Karen. All those in favor, please indicate with your hand. That is carried. Thank you, colleagues. So business arising from the minutes, is there any business? Correspondence you should have received electronically. Police Service Board Report 10.1 Procedural Bylaw Review. I'm going to look to Jill Eggleton and Deb Arnold to deal with this. Do you want to go first, Jill, or? Okay.
Thank you, Chair Redmond and members of the board. So as noted in the report, the board requested a full review of its current procedural bylaw. So based on that review, you will see a draft procedural bylaw in your package. As part of the review, we completed a gap analysis. We reviewed relevant board policies. We reviewed those to ensure they were aligned with the bylaw and then to avoid any duplication. The bylaw was also reviewed against current legislative requirements as well as against the new Community Safety and Policing Act, which has not yet been proclaimed, but will have an impact on the bylaw once enacted. The bylaw was also reviewed against current practices and past board direction. So the review was led by the board solicitor, Deb Arnold, and myself. And during the process, we also engaged others within the service in the Executive Office and Legal Services. So the objective for today is really to answer any questions or clarify any of the proposed changes, and then collect any feedback that you might have. Take that feedback, incorporate it into the draft, and bring a final copy back to the board in September for approval. So you'll see there is actually a number of edits proposed, and I will just provide a few highlights on the proposed changes and then open it up to the board for any questions or feedback on what's being proposed. So you'll see there's comments throughout the document, throughout the draft document, and the comments provide some context on some of the changes, as well as we've flagged a number of the sections that we will need to review once the new act and the associated regulations are proclaimed. So just to provide a few highlights on the changes, there's a number of sections where we added some additional process just to provide some clarity. An example would be the process that we would follow when there's a declaration of pecuniary interest. As I mentioned earlier, there's some sections that are going to require updates once the new act's proclaimed. So those have been flagged. There were a couple of instances where the new act was incorporated into this version because it complies with the current act, current practice. So we took the opportunity to incorporate those changes at this time. An example would be the requirements, the new requirements on what gets included in the notice of board meetings. So our current process complies with the current act and complies with the new requirements. So we've just made those edits now. We added some additional definitions just to provide some clarity on some of those terms. We've updated a few sections to reflect current practice, an example being the means in which we provide the board with notice of meetings. It's generally now all via electronic methods. There are also 2 board policies that we're recommending that their content get incorporated into the bylaw and the policies get archived. So the 2 policies are the consent agenda policy and the closed meeting policy. So the content of those policies really relates to matters that are addressed in the bylaw. So probably better suited there rather than a standalone document. We also expanded, you'll see the delegation section to provide more clarity on the process to speak as a delegation. So that's just a quick overview, but we'll open it up to questions and comments. And Ms. Arnold, I'm not sure if you have anything to add before moving forward to questions or comments.
No, thank you, Jill. Thank you, Chair Redmond.
Okay, thank you. Tony, go ahead.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. I just wanted a little bit of clarification around Section 9, subsection 3, as it's an amendment relating to closed meetings, and it says that a closed meeting may be had if the following two conditions. And part of that Roman numeral number 2 says that as long as no material advances of business or decisions of the board are made. And I'm wondering, sometimes in camera or closed meetings have decisions to be made relative to maybe litigations, et cetera, where advancement of business is made. Does this clause somehow contravene the aforementioned, or I maybe if you could.
Ms. Arnold?
Thank you, Chair Redmond. So no, if you look up in that section 9, sub 1, A and B, so the board may be in closed session to consider those matters, which might include, as you mentioned, litigation matters. And there may be decisions made by the board, direction to staff provided in closed session in relation to those matters. The highlighted new portion relates to what's known as, educational sessions. So those topics would not fit into the sub 1 and sub 2 provisions, but rather, of any topic, the board may discuss those in closed session, but is not permitted to make a decision or materially advanced decision making in relation to those matters. They would have to be considered in open session. So I hope that clarifies.
Okay, thank you.
Tony, does that help? Okay.
Yes, it does.
Thank you. Thank you. Sandy, go ahead.
Thank you. Just as I read through this, a lot of the procedures and mimic what we would see at council, but I certainly didn't go through with that eye. Is that fairly true, or are there any major differences between what we might see at council, either regional or local, and what many of these procedures look like?
Ms. Arnold, do you want to address that?
Sure, I can start, and then maybe Ms. Eggleton wants to elaborate. So really, we started with the foundation being the current procedural bylaw. We did do a fair amount of comparison to the regional council's procedural bylaw, and also, best practices, consistency with case law. So I hesitate to, make a global statement, but I don't believe there's anything that's, materially different from regional council's procedural bylaw, or that isn't, sort of best practice amongst the, the Big 10 Police Services Board, and perhaps Ms. Eggleton would elaborate on that.
Yeah, so that's, when we also looked not only at the regional bylaw, but also at the Big 12. So I did my gap analysis based on our comparator services within the Big 12. So did a detailed review of all theirs to make sure that there wasn't any sort of gaps that were missing. So yeah, so we did it looking at the regions bylaws as well as our comparators within the Big 12 as well.
Sandy, any further questions?
No, thank you very much.
Thank you. Rosita, please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to clarify under section 21 delegation, the timing, for them to send a request the day before the meeting day, is it enough time to process everything? Just in case they have materials and you have to resend to the board to read. I just want to know, is it a normal timing? Such a short timing.
Yeah, so I think that's general practice, and I think at the region as well, they do allow that close to the meeting to apply to request to speak as a delegation. I think one of the things we wanted to make sure that we provided enough time for the public if they wanted to delegate was particularly for those items that come up on the agenda. So I might post the agenda on the Friday, but they might not see the agenda for a day or two, and then we're very close to the time of the meeting. So if they want an opportunity to delegate on something that they saw on the agenda, that would give them an opportunity to do that within those timeframes.
Rosita, does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. Just in case, there's a lot of reading for the board, I just want to know that we have enough time to digest the materials as well.
Thank you very much. I see no other questions. So we're going to take this under advisement, Jill, and if people have feedback to you, we have till September to provide it.
Yes, so the goal is to bring a final version back to the board in September for approval. So if anybody had anything between now and then, they can certainly provide that feedback to me and take that into consideration when I bring the final version back in September for approval.
And if I could just reflect, Sandy, I loved your question about the compare and contrast between what's at the region as well as Waterloo Regional Police Services. This will be Deb Arnold's last time that she's at the police board in this capacity. You may come back as a delegation someday, Deb, but we just want to say best wishes for a very happy next chapter as you sail off into retirement. I'm sure we're going to do all kinds of very interesting things. And this police board has been well served for a very long time by an incredibly young looking retiree now. So thank you, Deb, for everything you've done, and best wishes on the next chapter.
Well, thank you very much, Chair Redmond. And may I say, it has just been an honor and a privilege to work with you and the board. I've been very fortunate, and I appreciate your wisdoms and insights into matters. Thank you very much.
And you're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting too, if you want, Deb. Thank you very much. Next is Chief of Police reports, budget timelines, which were attached. This is 2021. And this is for dash 133 to 2022. And Chief, do you want to introduce this? I believe you're going to punt it over to Kirsten, right?
Thanks so much, Chair Redmond, and just wanted to come to the board with an information update. As you're aware, we've been very active in working in our planning for the 2022 budget, as well as looking at the 2021 budget. We're at the halfway point, and I do want to provide some insight that we remain in a very positive position from an economic perspective, despite all the various of the pandemic and COVID. So we are doing well. This is an information piece for you. And I think we have our Director of Finance, Kirsten Hand, on the line to take you through a high-level report and answer any questions you may have. But I do want to reassure the board that we are actively and heavily engaged in advancing our planning for 2022. So over to Kirsten. Welcome. Good morning.
Morning. So this is an information report that just outlines the proposed budget timetable. We expect to get a finalized timetable from the region at some point this summer. But based upon initial conversations with them around the timing, the proposed schedules in the report, which basically outlines that we would begin board deliberations in October, continued into November with final board approval in December. At this point, the region has identified a possible date of November 29th that we may present to Budget Committee, and they're aiming for final budget approval in December. As the Chief noted, we're well underway internally with deliberations starting in March. We had our first Budget Committee meeting yesterday. This is new for us to our process. It's comprised of a cross-section of senior leaders that will look at recommending inclusion changes, modifications, reviewing budget estimates, and providing input into reporting and communication strategies. As well, this year, we will continue with looking at a 3-year viewpoint. So we'll be doing a 2022 to 2024 operating forecast with a formal recommendation to the board for the 2022 budget. And continuation from a capital perspective, we will continue with our 10-year capital forecast. We've done a high-level estimate for 2022 to 2024 with estimated pressures, including contractual agreements, benefits, looking at reducing our current salary gapping target, factoring in some of our reserve strategies, the impact of our new central division, and removing one-time transfer of reserves that are occurring this year. And based upon that information, we're looking at approximately 5.1% in 2022, 4% in 2023, and 3.7% in 2024. And these estimates at this point don't include any expansions. However, they do include the reduction of the court security and prisoner transportation grant, which occurred this year. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kirsten. Are there any questions or comments? I really appreciate the update personally. I know that you work hard at this all day, every day, amongst other things, so it's good to know that we're on track. I see no questions or comments, so this is for information, so thank you very much. The next agenda item is Waterloo Regional Police Services Strategic Business Plan Progress Report number 1. This is for 2021 to 2023. And Chief, over to you.
Thanks so much, Chair Redmond and members of the board. Again, very much aligned with our financial strategies and our future strategic initiatives is really a key piece of this is the Police Services Board Strategic Business Plan and how we monitor and engage our activities. And so it's a very important part of and very integrated into the funding of our police service. And so joining me, we have Miss Margaret Glode, who's our Manager of Strategic Services, and Miss Amanda Francini, who manages our progress and implementation and the evaluation work that we're doing. As committed to the board, we want to ensure that you remain up to date. The board did approve this plan at the start of the year. It includes 20 goals and 84 objectives. And although extremely aggressive, we've actually pared this down from previous years. So we are, very much focused and aligned on the core principles of the board's direction. And so to take you through a high-level overview, I want to welcome both Margaret and Amanda. Good morning, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Chief. I'll just say a few words first before, as usual, I'll hand it over to Amanda. As you know, she really is the mastermind behind all of this important work. She is the one that really ensures that everyone across the service is continuing to focus on and move forward the commitments that we've outlined in the strategic business plan. So you'll see from the report and hear some highlights from Amanda that this is no small undertaking. As the chief mentioned, there are 84 objectives. We have 59 different individuals across the service who are specifically assigned to these objectives and are responsible for updating their progress in an online tool. There are a lot of details about the work being done across the service that we've included in this first progress report. But rather than go through all these specifics, we hope that this first progress report will give you an idea of how we're operationalizing this plan, how we're building engagement and accountability throughout the service, and how we're sharing our progress over the next 3 years with you and our community. So just with that, I'll hand it over to Amanda. Thanks.
Thank you. I'm happy to add some verbal points of emphasis and provide a small orientation to our SBP progress reporting. So as you've heard, overall, what this report highlights is that we're creating a progress reporting system with some built-in engagement and accountability to keep us results oriented. So under the board's 5 pillars, we do have 20 goals and 84 objectives that have been member and community inspired and are really some reach ahead initiatives. Now the 84 objectives have been assigned to 59 different members of our service who we're calling positions accountable. Now, these PAs have created a specific and smart layer of strategies in documents called action plans. Those are their working copies of the steps to success, and they've set some personal quarterly target dates within those. Those steps remain in scope and related to performance indicators associated with the objectives. And that enables the progress reporting you see in the attachment. So what's great, and I really want to highlight, is the specific yet shared responsibility of this reporting. So again, we have 59 different members who are consistently engaged with the plan. And over half of them are new to strategic business planning. So this is really changing some exposure and mindset to this way of thinking. What's more is these 59 different members, as they carry out some of these strategies, they're going to be involving yet others as their strategies lead to even more specific tactics. So for example, if a strategy is to form a working group to address an objective, that working group could be comprised of another handful of members. And so we see the spread of engagement from there. WRPS has also named 15 unique goal champions to the 20 goals. And these GCs are going to provide oversight to the PAs and the collection of objectives under those goals. They're going to support the PAs in their progress and in reporting using this online tool. So what you see in the attachment are all the specifics that have been entered by the PAs. There's a short description accompanying those objectives that are currently active. And if there's not a short description, it is likely because those target dates set personally by the PAs in their action plans indicated the objective was not due to initiate quite yet. So at this time, I will open it back up to the board and the chief for any questions or comments.
Thank you very much, Marg and Amanda. And I have to say, I look at you two and I sort of feel like those hands in from that Allstate insurance commercial. I always feel like we're in good hands because both of you are so strategic and so good at explaining a process that can feel overwhelming. So thank you both for everything you do. I have some questions. We'll start with Karen Schneider.
Thank you so much, and thank you for to both Marg and Amanda for this document. I have a sense of how much work it actually takes. You make it look very easy, but it's a huge amount of work just to collate all of this information, and I thought it was presented in a very robust way, so I thought it was great. My question is actually on the very first thing, which is going to make it look like I didn't read through the entire document, and I'm just cherry picking the first one to have a question about, but it's more of a curiosity. I noted that the Community Safety and Wellbeing branch was expected to launch June 27th. And I was just curious to know whether or not it was successful in terms of meeting that target date.
Thanks so much, Dr. I can tell you that we have been successful. Inspector Elizabeth Houston is actually leading that. She's not at the meeting today, but Staff Superintendent Goodman is with us, who oversees and provides executive support for that area. And Inspector Houston is now developing a series of different pieces. Because we brought a number of integrations and integrated units, there was really a larger team approach. We had our facilities because there was some, all of the technical pieces of office movement and those types of processes. The branch is led by Staff Sergeant Jason Mulholland, who had transitioned from our COVID integrated response team, previously of our financial crimes and asset forfeiture, and through promotion has taken this role. And Inspector Houston and Staff Sergeant Mulholland, in partnership with Superintendent Havel and Staff Superintendent Goodman, are now actually filling some vacancies, but we're just in the final process of augmenting our community engagement officers who've been doing some significant work. We had some transition from their previous roles into that area, but we're also expanding and growing, as well as the supervisor roles. Our previously what was our community-oriented response teams and now our direct action response teams have all transitioned, and we are also filling some vacancies there. So it's come together well. In September, the board will see some updates around our youth engagement strategy, which we're working on very actively now, particularly with some decisions made by local school boards, as well as we look to how do we engage in a different modernized approach. So that is ongoing right now with a series of recommendations. And then, of course, they have a number of other strategies that they're responsible for that will be phased in over the year. We fully expect to be like fully in full gear by the end of the year. There's always these growth perspectives, but also Waterloo Wellbeing Region has relaunched and hired a new engagement leader, and we're actually very proud. It's was a member of our service, Ms. Paige Monique-Whip, who had previously worked in our equity, inclusion, and diversity team, who has transitioned independently to that project. And then, of course, we have, Tony G from the board that provides leadership at the governance committee, along with myself representing the service. So it's all coming into play. Of course, I see Deputy Hilton, who's very excited about this, but I think we still have some transition to get fully operational, fill vacancies, but I am excited. So we did meet that goal, which is a green light piece that I'm very excited for.
Karen, any further questions or comments?
That's great. Thank you. I think it's such a great initiative, and it's wonderful to hear that it's well underway.
Thank you. Tony Giovinazzo.
Through you, Madam Chair, I echo Karen's words of as to the quality of the report here. I have maybe a two-part question for clarity. The first is, I presume under some of these goals and tasks or initiatives that are underway, there are specific metrics that can be measured to ensure the success, right? And the second part of that is, and maybe it's more for ease for myself, I just throw this out as a comment for the actual initiatives that are in progress. When I read the comments, it was difficult for me to understand whether we're on target or not with the progress. I sometimes find in some of these reports a simple green, yellow, or red tells me in progress, it's green. That means things are moving along as expected. If it's yellow, that means there's a bit of a delay, and red is, we don't want to see any of those. So I throw that last piece out as more of a comment just to ease, to give a little bit more insight as to what in progress means.
Who would like to take that? Amanda, I see you nodding. Would you like to jump in?
Yeah, I can field those. So in regards to the performance metrics, in the PA's action plans, there is actually a section that heads the document where it repeats the goal, objective, target timelines, and the added section of performance metrics. So yes, there are some, either quantitative or qualitative pieces that should be on their forefront when they think of the strategies. And I can say that I've consulted with each of the PAs to help develop those, make sure that we either have a baseline or we can establish a baseline if it's a long-term strategy, and point them in the direction of sources such as our recent community surveys and focus groups and member surveys, to use our recent scanning pieces also as a guide, because that's what helped develop some of these goals and objectives. So if we can return to those in the next cycle or at different pulse checks throughout these 3 years, then that will be something they should be looking at to tie in with their strategies. And then in terms of the color coding, I must admit that for accessibility reasons, the format of the attachment changed slightly from previous years. We do have an internal version that currently outputs green for in progress, or sorry, green is for achieved, yellow would be for in progress, red would be for something past due, to kind of alert us that it needs some extra attention. And that can be modified into the next version of the attachment that we produce for the board.
Thank you, Tony. Any further comments or questions?
Sorry, none for me, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I don't know, Chief, did you want to weigh in? I noticed that you unmuted when Amanda was speaking. Do you want to add anything to that?
Just to really, it's great feedback, and obviously internally we do use the traffic signal system that is, obviously visually acceptable, so we know where we're at. Under the AODA Act, we do have some challenges with formatting and some of those processes, but it's great feedback. Tony, and our team will take it back, and in our next iteration of the document, we'll find a suitable sort of traffic signal system so that the board visually can understand whether something is in progress, on track, or there's a flag that will allow you to prompt and to assist with questions and or probing questions to really ensure that we're advancing your objectives and your goals. So stay tuned for that. It's great feedback. We appreciate it. Internally, we are currently doing that, but we don't have the same impact of the AODA Act internally. So stay tuned.
Thank you very much for that great feedback, Tony. And again, I guess we just have to have a common understanding as to what green, amber, and red look like. So as long as we all know that, we'll be reading those reports. This is report number 1. Outstanding work and very reflective, I would tell you, and I would think the board would agree with me in the community surveys and the input we got from talking to specific groups that were talking about gaps in policing and talking about their interaction with the police service. So thank you very much. We look forward to report number 2. Great work and great engagement of a large section of the service. So thank you very much for that. The next agenda item is strategic business plan. Nope, we did that one, sorry. Is 11.3 COVID integrated response team. And Chief, over to you. And then.
Thanks so much, Chair Redmond. And joining me will be Superintendent Tom Bursey. And they wanted to actually report back on the activities of the COVID integrated response team in CERT. With a general notion of, hopefully as we progress towards fall, that our community continues to be advancing through the pandemic. And I, for one, am actually missing the personal interaction with the board, and I hope we find ourselves in a boardroom doing important business in person. And much of that has been reliant on all the great work that is happening both with our public health unit, Dr. Wong. Of course, we're very proud of our own Deputy Chief Hilton and her leadership to the vaccination task force, but very grateful for all the work of our Emergency Operations Center, led by Superintendent Tom Bursey and Inspector Donna Mancuso. A significant amount of work over the last 15 plus months to ensure a safe, healthy workforce, as well as a safe, healthy community. And as the board is aware, we did launch a specialized team, particularly in the third pandemic, because the social climate around compliance had changed significantly. And so for a high level overview and any specific questions, I'd like to turn it over to Superintendent Bursey, but I do want to highlight and recognize the excellent work of the CERT team and all the members involved. So over to you, Superintendent Bursey. Good morning.
Morning. Thank you, Chief. Good morning, members of the board. So the COVID integrated response team was formed in late April and operated through mid-June. The team's mandate was to work cooperatively with our regional enforcement partners to respond to complaints and violations under the Reopening Ontario Act and the Emergency Management and Civil Protection Act, along with developing and implementing a proactive inspection program. Over the course of the team's operation, they handled 465 occurrences and laid 125 charges related to violations of pandemic-related restrictions. On any given day, the team also conducted 10 to 12 proactive inspections, attending various malls, retail locations, parks, and other outdoor gathering spaces. The team also attended a number of demonstrations across the region, but did not encounter any incidents involving violence or property damage. Funding for the team's operations was covered through the 2021 approved operating budget. That's a high-level overview, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much, Superintendent Bursey, and thank you for your leadership. I know it was invaluable, and we were in regular contact with the area bylaw officers, regional bylaw officers, as well as public health inspectors. And I think the leadership and the involvement of Waterloo Regional Police Services really added an awful lot of security and I think comfort to people who were going out often facing really fractious situations. So thank you for that, and that coordination was invaluable. Colleagues, any questions? Ian, go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't have the right screen up. Through you, Chair Redmond. I guess a couple of questions, maybe more for the chief than for Mr. Bursey, but I just wonder, sort of at the point, I think the CERT team, we got great feedback and reports on that. But as we head to what the new normal is, and the new normal is still a ways off, and I guess the question is, internally, how, in terms of managing how you're utilizing the staff internally, in terms of operations, the service to the public, and then when there's inevitably going to be flare-ups with COVID, the adaptability of how we respond to that. Because I think the sense that people have is that COVID is coming to an end. And I personally don't, I think there'll be a period of time where there's still going to be restrictions on numbers of people in congregate settings, et cetera, et cetera. So how do we manage that context? There's the public health thing for our own staff and how you're managing that, but how, in the absence of this kind of approach to dealing with the issues, when there's flare-ups and there's still going to be, for lack of a better term, there's going to be rules and regs that are not back to the way they used to be. I don't know if there's probably a question in there somewhere, but hopefully you can figure out what it is and help me with that.
No, thanks so much. Thanks so much, Mr. McLean. And again, this is really tied to our Emergency Operations Center that Superintendent Bursey and Inspector Mancuso lead. I will add that we're also very connected provincially. Superintendent Bursey is the vice chair of the Ontario Association of Chiefs of Police Emergency Management Committee. And so we've been, very, very involved in the provincial management, the provincial operations, provincial recommendations. Again, we've had significant internal workforce measures. I still remain very proud. To date, we've had 32 positive cases. Our members intersect with the community every single day. And I think that, although one is too many, we've done an excellent job at containing and ensuring workforce protection. More than 1,700 cases and exposures cleared. So internally, we've been doing some excellent work, rolling out rapid testing, rolling out, again, those that are willing and able, significant opportunities for vaccination. And we believe that a high percentage of our frontline workforce is now double vaccinated. Again, thanks to the continued rollout locally. We're also looking, though, beyond our borders. We recognize in other parts of the country that they're opening up at a faster rate. And so we do have a series of travel restrictions. We do look at training restrictions. We do continue to evaluate that. In fact, the executive meet with Superintendent Bursey and the team that he leads weekly to go through all of the different phases and all the different perspectives. And we're also, forecasting. We have a number of different pieces. We hope to actually attempt to ramp down some of our Emergency Operations Center by September and then continually to monitor where we're heading. But if you look at, Europe right now is going through a series of different focuses of lockdowns, and we are seeing the continued impact of the variants, which is why, and I'll certainly, on behalf of Dr. Wong, continue to promote that vaccination is a path forward. Somebody that is willing and able to get vaccinated as we roll through this. And that's sort of been our message internally, is how do we now get, if we look at our community is advancing at a great rate. So almost 40% have received double vaccination. We know that number will continue to increase, and that impacts our workforce because, obviously we're coming into less contact with those that are exposed. One of the challenges, and I think Superintendent Bursey and his team highlighted in the report, is we do have a little bit of regulation fatigue. We do have individuals that are under significant scrutiny and regulation and rules. And we've done the best we possibly can in compliance and certainly thankful for our community for doing the best they can. But we do have a number of businesses that are still not opened, that want to get opened, et cetera. So we've really reinforced, we're sort of back to the 4 E's, which is our whole focus of let's educate, let's engage, let's explain, and enforcement continues to be right now, the final option. Planned protests are those that put the greater good at risk. We take a very stringent approach, a very balanced approach, but I think provincially, all police services are finding a path forward as to how do we migrate. But what we've proven is the agility. And so if something sparks up or flares up again, we know we have the agility attorney both externally to get together a team and respond to it. And then internally, I think Tom and his team have masterminded this of when things change and when we didn't advance to step 2, we had a series of plans. We were able to very quickly and with great agility flip. And so we built in some parameters. Our service won't advance regardless of where we're at till July 26th. And we have a set plan around work from home, expanded access to our buildings. And we hope by September to be in some sense of new normal. So I'm confident, and I want to reassure the board that I think both internally and externally we're prepared, we're ready. We continue to be active partners in the Regional Waterloo Pandemic Control Group. And I would say that we're leaders provincially at the emergency operation level, thanks to the leadership of Tom and Donna and the entire team. So rest assured, we monitor this. We'll continue to monitor this. And that's why we continue even to provide financial impacts. We've streamed that out, and if at some point, probably in September, we'll revisit that with the board as to whether you want to continue to receive the impact of COVID, et cetera. But I think we're in a good place.
Thank you. I think that's important, agility, because I think there's going to be some bumps along the way, and great work by Deputy Hilton. I got my second job. I know lots of people are, but until the variant doesn't really care what the old numbers were, it's not really respecting the fact that 75 and 30 or whatever the old numbers were. So good to know that internally there's that agility, but I think it's for the public as well, right? And the public that we serve is, it's not going to be a straight line opening. And we've already seen that here in Waterloo region. And I think you're right. There's just a fatigue right now with following the rules. So important for you and your gang and to have that agility, because I think there's going to be some shuck and jiving around the reopening that as it happens. Thank you for that.
Superintendent Bursey, did you want to add anything from your perspective?
Thanks, Madam Chair. The only thing I would add is their team has been disbanded. We did have a response protocol in place with our regional enforcement partners prior to the formation of CERT, and that is still in place right now. So we are still providing effective call response to the fatigue that you referenced there if we do get any more calls regarding ongoing violations of either the ROA or the MCPA going forward.
Thank you very much for that. I think that cooperation and coordination, which everybody talks about being the hallmark of the region of Waterloo, and I truly do believe it is, had predated COVID and will, be a legacy that we will continue after COVID. So thank you, Superintendent Bursey, and your team for all you do. I see no other questions or comments. Chief, monthly report, over to you.
Thanks, Chair Redmond and members of the board. And just want to begin again with a moment of reflection. We continue to see the devastating findings of mass graves across our country, which are no doubt impacting all of our communities and causing all of us, and rightfully so, to pause and reflect on our approach as a community. And I want to reassert and reaffirm our commitment to the work that we're doing internally with our path forward and the work that we're doing in partnership with many different communities. It's a challenging time, and we know that this will continue over the next coming months. And so it's very important for us to reflect. I also want to take an opportunity to recognize and pay tribute to the Toronto Police Service, our colleagues, Chief Raymer, and all of our colleagues at the Toronto Police Service for the tragic line of duty death of Constable Jeffrey Northrup, 51 years old, of 51 Division, 52 Division Major Crime Unit, a 31-year veteran who tragically serving the citizens of Toronto and the citizens of Ontario lost his life in the line of duty when he was killed on July 2nd. A very tragic moment in our province with tentacles across us, and we all feel the pain and we share the pain and want to express condolences to members of the Toronto Police Service as well as members of 52 Division, and our special thoughts are with Constable Northrup's family, friends, and colleagues. These are challenging times and difficult times, and so do want to recognize Constable Northrup and his exemplary service. Transitioning from the moments of reflection as we enter July, and this will be we'll have a bit of a summer break in the month of August, and we'll reconvene as a board in September. I continue to be immensely proud of the ongoing work. As we're at the midway point of the year, a significant amount of work occurs daily in our community, and our members continue to provide services with great professionalism, great diligence, and great commitment to public safety. I do want to recognize the citizens of the City of Kitchener and the Grove Hill community. and update the board on in the last 24 hours, the incident involving interaction of a Waterloo Regional Police officer and 2 suspects in a stolen vehicle where a service firearm was discharged. We know that these are unsettling times for the residents of Grove Hill, and we want to reassure the community that we're doing everything we possibly can to investigate that incident, but also internally supporting our members that were involved in this traumatic and serious incident. We call upon our police officers to do a lot of split-second decision-making. And I think it's a stark reminder stemming from the incident in Toronto and then most recently here. At shortly before 6 a.m., a citizen contacted our police service to report a suspicious vehicle. And again, I think that that's a hallmark of our community, that somebody felt that, something just doesn't seem right here. 2 patrol officers did attend. They did actually confirm that the vehicle was stolen. They began their investigation. They approached the vehicle and located 2 individuals inside the vehicle, a male in the driver's side seat and a female in the passenger seat. They were unable to get their attention, unable to actually connect with them. One of the officers, in the interest of community safety, did break a window to gain access, which then did startle and wake the occupants of the stolen vehicle. The details and specific details I can't speak to, as this is a special investigations unit investigation, but I can confirm that one of the officers involved did discharge their service firearm. Another officer then actually did commence a suspect apprehension pursuit, which was terminated in the interest of community safety. And the West Grey Police Service did locate the stolen vehicle in West Grey, and it was burned out. And so we are looking for 2 suspects. We continue to work with the Special Investigations Unit. Civilian oversight is an important part of police accountability. And internally, though, we continue to support our members and our Central Division, and particularly officers that did attend. No doubt that this was a traumatic event and they require the necessary support. And we must allow the independent civilian review to continue, as well as the leadership of our investigative unit looking into the suspicious vehicle, the stolen vehicle, and the actions of those involved. And so I felt it was appropriate to update the board and want to send a thank you to all the citizens on Grove Hill Crescent who have been extremely cooperative, have been working and supporting our investigators with retrieving video and other information. Again, I think it's a hallmark of a good community when people connect and collaborate with the police and partner with the police to provide information to advance this investigation. I want to transition to road safety. We're at the midpoint of the year where road safety continues to be a significant concern in our community. I know that the board, and in particular the elected officials, hear consistently from their members of the community around road safety. There's a number of excellent initiatives happening regionally, a lot of excellent work happening in partnership with the Regional Waterloo and our municipalities around road engineering, automated speed enforcement, traffic calming, etc. But we do continue to see those that put the community at risk. Year to date, we've had 6 fatal collisions, which have resulted with 7 deaths. And those are numbers, but behind all of those numbers are families, friends, schools, so many people impacted, and so many systems, our healthcare system impacted, our insurance impacted, and not that to take away from that, but there's significant stories behind these 7 victims of road fatalities. And I think that that can't be lost on us. When we look at the hurt of our community, and in particularly, 3 passengers, the 7 victims, 3 were passengers in vehicles. And so they get in a vehicle and they assume that, this will, they'll be safe driving. We've had 1 was a pedestrian, 1 was a cyclist, and 2 were motorcycle drivers. And again, there's a story and a family and loved ones all behind these tragic deaths. That being said, we have significantly taken on road safety. We're operating specialized road safety teams every month, with the exception of July and August, where we have other significant demands and we redeploy those members. But our traffic services unit has been doing significant work. And to give you some insight alone, in June, 64 impaired driving charges delayed. We continue to conduct ride programs every single day across the region. And we're also very grateful for the recent announcement by Minister Mulrooney in the MUMS legislation, which is Moving Ontario's More Safely Act, which actually allows police and provides police more legislative authority to deal with stunt driving and racing charges. What we're seeing now is motorists who travel 40 kilometers or more in roadways that are under the speed limit of 80 kilometers. Our police service and police officers across the province will have enhanced authorities for roadside license suspensions and vehicle impoundments. And I can tell you that this came into play on July 1st, and our police service has already, since July 1st, laid 6 charges under the new MUMS Act, which again, I think will continue to put our community in a greater safety. And of course, region and municipalities are very much looking at speed within our various neighborhoods, particularly in suburban neighborhoods, where we know that as we lower speed limits, the chance and likelihood of survival in any sort of collision, particularly with pedestrians and cyclists, is much greater. And so this is a real collaborative approach. The other concerning piece that has popped up across the Greater Toronto Area and shows the tentacles and the linkages of our community and how we're tied to the Greater Toronto is modified vehicles and these mass takeovers. And it should be one of concern for all of us. Since April and through May and June, our traffic services road safety team has been very much focused on modified vehicles. And it's fairly significant to look at the charges they've laid. For example, 20 charges under the Environmental Protection Act dealing with emission controlled in a world where we're dealing with climate change and a number of significant pieces. We see that vehicles are modified, 55 improper muffler charges, 72 no muffler charges, 53 unnecessary noise charges, 33 improper tire charges, 10 defective brakes. And during that time, more than 3,600 speeding charges laid, including 76 stunt charges. And we have been dismantling in partnership with the York and Peel and Barrie Police Service unsanctioned car rallies across our community. And so some excellent collaborative work, but it also highlights the connections and the tentacles across our region. I just want to provide an update and sort of highlight the complexities of the crime that we see in our community. This week, the Peel Regional Police Service arrested a male for first-degree murder who was involved in the Leicester Street shooting and is charged by our service with 2 attempt murder charges. That individual, the accused in the Leicester Street shooting incident, was arrested in Peel Regional Police Service and charged this week with first-degree murder. And you can see that how the transition of boundaries mean nothing around the criminal movement and the connections. And I'm very proud of our major crime team and the work that they have done to work with Peel Regional Police Service and to support their investigation. But I highlight that for the board and for our community to understand that we're consistently crossing boundaries and working in collaboration with other police services, and that crime knows no boundaries. And so I think it's very important that we highlight those processes. As we wrap up and we'll continue our work, we had a very safe Canada Day, a period of reflection across our community. But we did have an operational plan in place, and special thanks to our neighborhood policing team for supporting our uptowns and our downtowns as we continue to see more people using patios and enjoying the community, which is a hallmark of safety. We continue to see that. I do want to give the board a high-level update that in the next coming weeks, we'll once again be officially launching our Backpack Challenge. Last year, we were able to provide 2,500 students backpacks and lunch bags and gift cards. Although they got to school a little bit, most of it was virtual. We're hoping that our children and our youth across our region are able to once again enjoy the social opportunities to participate in classroom in person. This started several years ago from a friendly call from our colleague, Ms. Karen Spencer, the Family Children Services Executive Director, looking for some help. And at that time it was, Chief, do you think you can get us 100 backpacks? And here we are 3 years later, last year, with a record 2,500 backpacks. And so we will be launching that initiative once again to support young people who are 20% of our population, but 100% of our future. And we should be investing in our youth who are current leaders, present leaders, and definitely future leaders. I would be remiss at the end. I want to take an opportunity and dedicate this monthly operational report to all those members of our service that have served as school resource officers. Over the last 30 years, countless members of our service have had the opportunity and the privilege to interact with students in all of our schools, through the Children's Safety Village, through our elementary schools, through our high schools. They've participated in supporting various clubs and social activities, and they have coached sports teams. And most recently, we recognize that the relationship with the School Resource Officer program will be changing, and we'll be looking at a different opportunity. I view this as an opportunity to build. I view this as an opportunity to continue the work and engagement with young people. Although I'm disappointed and upset with the decision, I do understand it, and I'm looking to the future and what opportunities do we have to build with youth. But I would be remiss if I didn't take the opportunity to recognize the many members who invested so much time in young people, whether it was a presentation in a class talking about policing and law and society, or something completely different, participating in a career fair, or helping a cooperative education student, or reading to a kindergarten class. All of those things have transpired, and I think have built many bridges. It's unfortunate that some, and it's unfortunate that some do not, and we did not feel safe with the program, and we recognize that. There's always opportunities for improvement, opportunities for doing different things. But I'm very excited to see the work of Inspector Beth Houston under the leadership of Superintendent Havel and Staff Superintendent Goodman and Deputy Hilton about what the future of our youth engagement strategy will look like. I do believe that we need to continue to build bridges and relationships with young people, and I know that our members are committed to that. We witness it every single day. Deputy Crowell and Deputy Hilton and I see people doing so much work. Even most recently, Constable Lindsay Schill in North Division during the pandemic. We weren't able to do our annual Special Olympics torch run supporting our Special Olympians, and Lindsay took it upon herself and ran some intense kilometers, which I can only imagine how challenging it was. But her and her team, pulling together $600 to make a difference in the lives of Special Olympians. And that may seem like a little approach, but it's significant to our Special Olympians. So again, special thanks to all those that gave and continue to give to young people and schools. We salute you, we thank you, and we look forward to the future. So once again, as we take a summer break and will not be together in August, on behalf of Deputy Crowell and Deputy Hilton, we'd like to recognize all the members of our service, our senior leadership team, but a special thank you to board members. All of you are doing this as a gift to the community. We appreciate your wisdom, your leadership, and your guidance, and we look forward to connecting in September. So we'll connect daily on electronically, but we won't get to see you, and hopefully we do get to see some of you in person in the fall. So subject to any questions, that's my report. And once again, thank you to the board for your community leadership.
Thank you, Chief. You covered a lot of ground, and would echo the support for the school resource officers and the hard work that they've dedicated for years and years, as well as to all of the service, both uniform and civilian, for the work that they do to make sure that the 630,000 people in Waterloo region not only are safe, but feel safe. So thank you to all of you. We often comment to each other as board members that the complexity and the breadth of the issues that the police service deal with on a daily basis is really stunning. So thank you. I see no questions or comments, so I would let the community know that when we're adjourned, members of the media are welcome to log into the Zoom and log in questions. And Chief Larkin and I will be there to answer questions. And is there any new business? Future agenda items? Information items? So seeing nothing, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. That is moved by Councillor Kiefer and seconded by Dr. Schneider. All those in favor? It's funny, that's always the most popular motion in any meeting. Thank you all. Enjoy the day, enjoy the summer, and I know we will